How far would you go to believe in redemption? Would you risk your safety, your family's future, your very life for the chance to help someone find their way back from darkness? For Keisha Miranda Neely, a devoted mother and hardworking nurse from Memphis, Tennessee, the answer was clear. She was willing to risk it all. What began as a leap of faith in love and second chances would unravel into an unthinkable tragedy that would leave a community shattered and 3 children without their mother. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, your gateway to the chilling world of real-life horror. Here, we delve into the darkest corners of humanity, unearthing terrifying stories of true crime that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community as we explore some of the most compelling cases in true crime history. The story of Keisha Miranda Neely begins in the pulsing heart of Memphis, Tennessee, where the rhythm of blues music mingles with the deep-rooted spirit of resilience. In the Blue Cola neighborhood of Binghamton, where Victorian homes stand as silent witnesses to generations of struggle and triumph, young Keisha absorbed the values that would shape her destiny and ultimately lead to her demise. Binghamton wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a tight-knit community where faith flowed as steadily as the Mississippi River. Here, families didn't just survive. They lifted each other up, sharing burdens and celebrating victories together. For Keisha, these early years laid the groundwork for an unwavering belief in the power of community, faith, and second chances. The foundation of Keisha's character was built on 3 pillars: perseverance, spirituality, and the reward of honest labor. Her family, pillars of the community themselves, didn't just preach these values. They lived them daily, showing young Keisha that faith without works was dead. These weren't just lessons. They were the very air she breathed, becoming so deeply ingrained in her personality that they would eventually become both her greatest strength and her fatal flaw. As Keisha blossomed into adulthood, life began testing the very resilience she had been raised to embody. The arrival of her daughters, Ilya and Jayla, brought immeasurable joy but also unprecedented challenges. When their fathers walked away, leaving Keisha to shoulder the full weight of parenthood alone, she faced a crucible that would have broken many others. But Keisha wasn't just anyone. She was a woman forged in the fires of Memphis determination. Between the exhausting cycle of diaper changes and bedtime stories, Keisha pursued her education with a fervor that left even her strongest supporters in awe. The late nights of studying, the bone-deep weariness, the constant juggling of responsibilities, these weren't obstacles to her, but rather stepping stones on her path to providing a better life for her girls. Her dedication paid off when she earned her degree in healthcare administration, an achievement that marked her as someone who could rise above any circumstance. With her degree in hand, Keisha carved out a career as a licensed bail bondsman. This choice of profession would later seem like a cruel irony. A woman who made her living helping others regain their freedom would ultimately lose her own in the most tragic way possible. But at the time, it was simply another example of Keisha's commitment to helping others, even though society had deemed unworthy of second chances. Despite her professional success and dedication to her daughters, there remained an unfilled space in Keisha's heart. The longing for partnership, for someone to share life's burdens and joys, lingered beneath her confident exterior. This yearning for companionship would ultimately lead her to a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. In 2019, a seemingly innocent Facebook notification illuminated Keisha's screen. The sender was Moses Sheldon Neely, a man whose life had been spent largely behind prison walls. Moses, known in the streets simply as Moses, carried a history that would have sent most people running in the opposite direction. His criminal record read like a cautionary tale, a litany of charges stretching back to 1994 that painted a picture of a life mired in violence and unlawful behavior. Moses's first conviction in 1994 for possessing controlled substances with intent to sell marked the beginning of a pattern that would define his adult life. Rather than serving as a wake-up call, this initial brush with the law became merely the first entry in an ever-growing rap sheet. By the mid-1990s, his name had become familiar in courtrooms and police stations across the region. 1995 saw Moses's probation revoked, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. Freedom in 1997 proved temporary, as new charges quickly accumulated, from resisting law enforcement to assault. Each release seemed to be merely a brief intermission before his next encounter with the criminal justice system. The culmination of this spiral came in 2010 when Moses received his most serious sentence yet, 12 years for assault with a deadly weapon and illegal firearm possession. This wasn't just another entry in his criminal record. It was a clear indication of his capacity for violence and disregard for human life. Yet it was from behind these prison walls that Moses crafted a different narrative. Through carefully worded messages and emotional appeals, he presented himself to Keisha not as a career criminal, but as a man seeking redemption. His words were carefully chosen, each message designed to resonate with Keisha's deeply held belief in second chances and the power of transformation. For Moses, the prison system had become more than a punishment. It had become a stage where he perfected the art of manipulation. He learned to weave stories of regret and promises of change with a conviction that could make even the most skeptical pause. Whether these expressions of remorse were genuine or calculated remains one of the tragic mysteries of this story. What began as social media exchanges quickly evolved into something deeper. Late-night phone calls from prison became a routine, each conversation building a foundation of emotional connection that seemed to transcend the harsh reality of Moses's circumstances. Letters exchanged between them painted pictures of a future filled with promise. A future that would never come to pass. To Keisha, these communications weren't just conversations. They were building blocks of hope. Each word from Moses seemed to confirm her belief that everyone deserved a chance at redemption. The very qualities that made her exceptional, her compassion, her faith in human potential, her unwavering optimism, were being skillfully manipulated by a man who had spent decades perfecting the art of deception. As Keisha's relationship with Moses deepened, the concerns of those around her grew increasingly urgent. Family members and friends watched with mounting anxiety as she invested more of herself into this connection with a man whose violent history spoke volumes about his true nature. Their warnings, born of love and fear for her safety, fell on deaf ears as Keisha remained steadfast in her belief that Moses could change. The reality of Moses's past was stark and undeniable. His criminal history wasn't just a series of minor infractions. It was a chronicle of escalating violence and persistent lawlessness. Each charge, each conviction, each prison sentence told the story of a man who had made violence his way of life. From drug possession in 1994 to assault with a deadly weapon in 2010, his path showed no evidence of the reformation he promised in his letters to Keisha. Despite this haunting history, Keisha saw something different. To her, each prison visit became a testament to possibility. She would make the journey to the correctional facility, often with her daughters Ilya and Jayla in tow, envisioning these moments as stepping stones toward the family life she dreamed of creating. The sterile visiting rooms, with their harsh fluorescent lighting and watchful guards, became stages where Moses could perform his role of the reformed man seeking redemption. Social media became Keisha's platform for sharing her unconventional love story. Her posts painted pictures of hope and transformation, carefully filtered through the lens of optimism that colored her worldview. Each shared moment, each expressed dream of their future together, served to further cement her commitment to this path, despite the growing chorus of concern from those who loved her. The culmination of this period came on December 17, 2021, when Keisha and Moses exchanged vows in a prison chapel. Rather than the traditional wedding she might have once imagined, with flowing white dress and flower-filled church, Keisha married Moses surrounded by concrete walls and fellow inmates. To her, this ceremony represented not just a union of two people, but a victory of hope over circumstance, of faith over fear. Yet even this moment of supposed triumph carried dark undertones that would only become clear in hindsight. The very fact that their marriage took place in a prison, with Moses still serving time for violent crimes, should have been the starkest warning of all. Instead, Keisha saw it as merely another chapter in their story of redemption. During this period, Keisha's relationships with family and friends became increasingly strained. Those closest to her watched in helpless frustration as she dismissed their concerns about Moses's violent history. Their warnings about his pattern of manipulation and violence were met with assurances that he had changed, that their love was different, that she could see something in him that others couldn't. Her unwavering faith in Moses's potential for change wasn't just touching, it was tragic. The very qualities that made Keisha remarkable, her compassion, her belief in second chances, her ability to see the best in others, were being weaponized against her by a man who had spent decades perfecting the art of manipulation. September 12, 2022, marked a pivotal turning point in this tragic narrative. Moses Sheldon Neely walked out of prison and into a world that Keisha had carefully prepared for their new life together. The moment of his release, which Keisha had dreamed about for so long, would prove to be the beginning of a nightmare that would ultimately claim her life. In an act of complete dedication to their fresh start, Keisha made the monumental decision to uproot her life in Memphis. She chose Hoffman, North Carolina, a small town that she hoped would provide the perfect backdrop for their new beginning. The modest house on McCoy Drive represented everything she had dreamed of, a sanctuary where their blended family could flourish away from the shadows of the past. However, the reality of life with Moses quickly began to deviate from Keisha's carefully constructed vision. The man who had written beautiful letters about change and redemption from behind prison walls proved to be something entirely different in the harsh light of freedom. The daily responsibilities of family life, the mundane yet crucial tasks of maintaining a home, caring for children, and contributing to a partnership, seemed beyond Moses's capability or interest. His behavior, rather than showing signs of the transformation he had promised, began to display disturbing patterns. The structure and discipline required for family life appeared foreign to someone who had spent the majority of his adult years navigating the harsh realities of prison existence. Instead of embracing his role as a partner and stepfather, Moses exhibited increasing signs of detachment and volatility. The peaceful home Keisha had envisioned became a stage for mounting tension. Arguments erupted with increasing frequency, often triggered by Moses's unwillingness to participate in family life or his explosive reactions to minor frustrations. The walls of their home on McCoy Drive, which had initially represented hope and new beginnings, began to echo with raised voices and slammed doors. Neighbors, initially welcoming to the new family, started to notice troubling signs. The sounds of domestic discord became an unwelcome rhythm in their quiet neighborhood. What had begun as Keisha's dream of a fresh start was rapidly deteriorating into a nightmare she couldn't seem to escape. Early 2023 brought both hope and heartbreak. Keisha's pregnancy, which should have been a joyous milestone in their marriage, ended in devastating miscarriage in February. This loss, rather than bringing them closer together, seemed to create an even wider chasm. Moses's response to the tragedy, distant and detached, further highlighted the growing disconnect between Keisha's hopes and the harsh reality of their relationship. Yet even in the face of this devastating loss, Keisha's resilient spirit prevailed. When she discovered she was pregnant again later that year, she viewed it as another chance at the family life she so desperately wanted to create. However, this pregnancy too would be marked by complications, culminating in the premature birth of their daughter Kamari at just 30 weeks. The arrival of Kamari in June 2023, rather than solidifying their family bond, seemed to further expose the cracks in their relationship. While Keisha poured her energy into caring for their fragile newborn, juggling the needs of her older daughters alongside Kamari's intensive medical care, Moses's detachment only grew more pronounced. The period following Kamari's discharge from the hospital in late July marked a critical escalation in the deteriorating situation at the Neely household. The demands of caring for a premature infant, coupled with Moses's increasing volatility, created an atmosphere of unbearable tension. The dream home on McCoy Drive had transformed into a pressure cooker of emotions, where each day brought new challenges and mounting fears. Months before the final tragedy, there had been a terrifying preview of what was to come. In an incident that should have served as the ultimate warning sign, Moses's violence erupted in front of Keisha's daughters. During a heated argument, His rage manifested physically as he attempted to strangle Keisha. The terror of that moment, his hands tightening around her throat, the frightened eyes of her children watching, would haunt those who later questioned why she stayed in that desperate moment. Keisha had managed to reach for a handgun, firing a single shot that struck Moses in the leg. It was an act of pure self-defense, one that led to his arrest but, tragically, not to the end of their relationship. Despite this clear evidence of the danger he posed, Keisha's unwavering belief in second chances led her to post his $33,000 bond, allowing him to return to their home within days. The cycle of tension and violence continued to escalate through the summer months of 2024. The peaceful facade of their home on McCoy Drive barely concealed the growing storm within. Neighbors became unwilling witnesses to frequent arguments, the sounds of conflict spilling out into the quiet streets of Hoffman. Each incident seemed to build upon the last, creating an increasingly unstable environment. Moses's behavior grew more erratic and unpredictable. The man who had once written passionate letters about redemption from his prison cell now showed little interest in the responsibilities of family life. His presence in the home became a source of constant anxiety, his moods shifting unpredictably between detachment and aggression. Despite the mounting evidence that her faith in Moses had been grievously misplaced, Keisha continued to maintain a brave face to the world. Her social media posts attempted to paint a picture of domestic harmony, even as the reality of her situation grew increasingly dire. She was fighting a battle between her deep-seated belief in redemption and the terrifying reality of her circumstances. August 4, 2024, dawned like any other summer morning in Hoffman, North Carolina. The modest house on McCoy Drive stood quietly in the early morning light, giving no indication that it would soon become the site of an unthinkable tragedy. For Keisha Miranda Neely, it began as just another day of balancing the demands of her growing family, caring for newborn Kamari while tending to her older daughter's needs. The morning routine unfolded with its familiar rhythm. Keisha, ever the dedicated mother, went about her usual tasks, preparing bottles, changing diapers, maintaining the semblance of normalcy she had fought so hard to create. Meanwhile, Moses Sheldon Neely, the man she had risked everything to believe in, remained characteristically detached from these daily family responsibilities. The tension that had become a constant presence in their home continued to build throughout the morning. What began as another domestic disagreement, likely over Moses's persistent neglect of family duties, quickly escalated into something far more sinister. The arguments that neighbors had grown accustomed to hearing took on a different tone that day, the raised voices carrying an edge of desperation that would later haunt those who heard them. As the conflict intensified, the peaceful neighborhood was suddenly shattered by the sharp report of gunfire. The sounds that pierced the quiet Sunday morning sent neighbors scrambling for their phones, desperate calls to 911 reporting the horrifying noises emanating from the Neely residence. When law enforcement arrived at the scene, they encountered an eerie silence that contrasted sharply with the chaos reported moments before. The house, which Keisha had once viewed as the foundation for her family's fresh start, had become the stage for its final tragic act. Following protocol, officers methodically cleared each room, their movement through the house building tension with each step. The master bedroom door, locked from the inside, presented the final barrier between authorities and the grim truth that awaited them. After forcing entry, they discovered a scene that would haunt even seasoned officers. Both Keisha and Moses lay lifeless, victims of what investigators would determine to be a murder-suicide. In the aftermath, the quiet streets of Hoffman bubbled with shock and disbelief. The community struggled to reconcile the horrifying end with the hope-filled beginnings they had witnessed just months before. 3 children, Ilya, Jayla, and baby Kamari, were left without their mother, their lives forever altered by a tragedy born of misplaced faith and unheeded warnings. The investigation revealed the full scope of the day's events, piecing together how a woman's unwavering belief in redemption had led to her ultimate demise. The evidence painted a clear picture of premeditation on Moses's part, suggesting that the very man Keisha had fought so hard to save had planned her destruction. Keisha Miranda Neely's story serves as a heart-wrenching reminder of how the noblest of human qualities, compassion, faith in redemption, and the capacity for forgiveness, can sometimes lead us down deadly paths. Her tale is not just one of tragedy, but a cautionary narrative about the fine line between hope and denial, between second chances and self-preservation. As our community continues to grapple with this devastating loss, we must ask ourselves, when does faith in redemption become a fatal flaw? How can we balance the human capacity for change with the need for self-protection? Keisha's story compels us to examine these questions, even as we mourn her loss and honor her memory. If you found this story moving or have thoughts to share about similar cases, please leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Stories Archive for more in-depth explorations of cases that challenge our understanding of human nature and the complexities of love, trust, and redemption.